He stood on a stage in a $1,000 suit, talking to news cameras about community and resilience. He used words like tragedy and rebuilding, but I knew the truth. Just 2 weeks earlier, that same man, land developer Marcus Thorne, had looked me dead in the eye and told me my family's home, the one my grandfather built, wasn't worth the dirt it stood on. A week after that, a 10-foot wall of water, a direct result of his greed, ripped that home from the earth. He thought the flood had washed away all the evidence. But he was wrong. If you've ever felt completely powerless, if you've ever been dismissed by someone who thought they were untouchable, then you know exactly the feeling I'm talking about. This isn't just a story about a flood. It's about what happens when a good person is pushed too far. Stick with me, and I promise you a story of justice so satisfying you'll feel it in your bones. And if you believe in karma, hit that like button and subscribe, because you're in the right place. Before the storm, life was simple, but it was good. My name is Leo. I lived just outside a small but growing town in the Texas Hill Country. I had a small custom furniture business I ran out of my garage. I lived in the house my grandfather built with his own 2 hands. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid. It held memories in its walls, my height marked on a door frame, the porch swing where I had my first kiss, the garden my wife Sarah tended to every single day. Our neighborhood was what you'd call old Texas. Small single-story homes, families who'd known each other for generations. And then came Marcus Thorne. Thorne wasn't from here. He was a big city developer who saw our rolling hills not as a home, but as an untapped asset. He bought a massive parcel of land just up the Blanco River from our community. His vision was an exclusive gated community called Riverbend Estates, complete with a private golf course. To protect his investment from the very river he was advertising, he built a massive state-of-the-art retaining wall and drainage system. The problem was, he was redirecting the natural flow of water. We knew it. Old Man Hemlock, a retired civil engineer who lived 3 doors down from me, drew up informal charts. He showed how Thorne's construction had created a natural funnel, a bottleneck. Any significant rainfall, he warned, wouldn't just flow down the river anymore. It would be violently channeled directly toward our neighborhood. We tried to be civil. A group of us went to a town hall meeting. Leo, Mr. Thorne, all we're asking is for an independent review. Your runoff channels point directly at our homes. We're talking about a dozen families. I'll never forget the look on his face. It wasn't anger. It was nothing. It was the look of a man swatting away a fly. Marcus Thorne, folks, my engineers are the best in the state. My development is secure. Perhaps instead of worrying about my property, you should have spent more on your own. After the meeting, he caught me in the hallway, got close. His cologne was sickeningly sweet. He lowered his voice. Marcus Thorne, let me be clear. Your little shacks are dragging down the property value of this entire area. The sooner a strong wind comes along and blows them over, the better for everyone. The rage that went through me was white hot. My hands clenched into fists so tight my knuckles ached. I could feel the blood pounding in my ears. But I just stood. They're powerless. He was rich, connected. I was just a carpenter. 2 months later, the sky opened up. It wasn't just rain, it was a deluge. For 2 days, it didn't stop. We watched the river rise with a knot of dread in our stomachs. The emergency alerts started blaring on our phones. Seek higher ground. But for us, there was nowhere to go. Thorne's wall was doing its job perfectly. It was protecting his land. It was turning the river into a battering ram aimed straight at us. I remember the sound, a low guttural roar that wasn't thunder. It was the sound of moving water, carrying with it trees, cars, debris. The lights flickered and died. Sarah and I grabbed our dog and a go bag and scrambled up to the attic, the highest point in the house. Below us, we heard my grandfather's house begin to die. It wasn't a crash, it was a groan. The sound of wood that had stood for 70 years. Giving up, I felt the floor beneath me lurch as the foundation gave way. We held on to the rafters, the whole world shaking, as our home was literally ripped from the ground and pulled into the raging current. Our lives were being erased. We were rescued by the National Guard the next morning, plucked from the roof of a neighbor's house a mile downstream. Our home was gone. Everything. The photos, the furniture I'd built, my workshop, my tools. All of it buried under a mountain of mud and debris. The news was filled with tragedy. So many missing, so many lives destroyed. And then I saw him. Marcus. Thorne? He was holding a press conference, announcing he was setting up a relief fund. He pledged $100,000 pocket change for him. Marcus Thorne, it's a horrific, unforeseen tragedy. Our hearts go out to all the families affected. Here at Riverbend Estates, our superior engineering thankfully held strong, but we must now come together as a community to help our less fortunate neighbors. Less fortunate. The words hit me like a physical blow. He wasn't just a bystander, he was the architect of our ruin. And here he was, playing the hero. That was my turning point. The grief in my heart didn't disappear, but it made room for something else, something cold, hard, and patient. Justice. For weeks, I did nothing but dig. I dug through the wreckage of my life, looking for anything salvageable. I dug into Marcus Thorne's life, spent hours at the county records, office, at the library, online. I was looking for a crack, a mistake, and I found it. It was an environmental impact report from a small, now-defunct surveying firm. It was an early assessment Thorne had commissioned before he hired his big, expensive engineering company. Must have been buried because the results weren't what he wanted. Tucked away in Appendix C was a single paragraph. I can still recite it by heart. The proposed non-permeable retaining wall, combined with the redirection of drainage basin, 3A, will create a significant downstream surge amplification effect during a 100-year flood event. The model projects a 400% increase in water velocity and a potential 8 to 12-foot rise in floodwater levels in the adjacent residential zone. Proceeding without a complete redesign is considered grossly negligent and poses a significant threat to life and property. My breath caught in my chest. He knew. He knew exactly what would happen. He buried this report, paid off the firm, and hired a new team that would give him the answers he wanted. He rolled the dice with our lives to save a few $1,000,000. Now, I had the weapon. I just needed the right moment to use it. And Thorne, in his infinite arrogance, handed it to me himself. 2 months after the flood, he hosted the Hill Country Hope Gala, a black-tied charity event to celebrate the spirit of Texas. It was a disgusting, self-serving PR stunt held in the ballroom of his new golf club on High Ground, of course. Tickets were $5,000 a plate. The governor was there. News crews from Austin and San Antonio were there, and I was there, not as a guest. I got a job with the catering company for the night. For $50, I got a black vest, a bow tie, and a front row seat to his downfall. I had the report scanned onto a USB drive. Tucked into my pocket, my heart was a hammer against my ribs, but my hands were steady. I spent an hour serving drinks, getting a feel for the room, locating the AV booth. As I suspected, it was run by a single, overwhelmed tech kid. During a lull, I went back. Leo. Hey man, you look swamped. The boss sent me to see if you needed a water or anything. Tough gig. We chatted for 5 minutes. Accidentally spilled some water on his console. As he panicked and grabbed napkins, it took me less than 3 seconds to plug my USB into the back of the master laptop that controlled the huge projector screen behind the stage. I dragged the file onto the desktop, then I walked away. The main event was Thorne's speech. He took the stage to thunderous applause. He was in his element, soaking in the adoration. Marcus Thorne, and while this has been a time of immense challenge, it has also been a time of immense strength. When I look out at this community, I see resilience, see hope, and I see a future built on safer, stronger foundations. That was my cue. I had a small remote, a simple presentation clicker I'd synced to the laptop. I stood at the back of the room by the service door, and I pressed the button. Behind Thorne, the Gala's Hope logo vanished. It was replaced by the scanned image of the report. Crisp, black and white. I had used a highlighter on the key section. Silence. For a full 5 seconds, nothing happened. The crowd was just confused. Thorne, blinded by the stage lights, hadn't noticed. But then, a low murmur started at the back of the room. I could see people pointing. I saw a news cameraman zoom in on the screen. Thorne finally sensed the shift in the room. He faltered, his smile twitching. He glanced over his shoulder. I will treasure the look on his face for the rest of my life. The smug confidence didn't just fade. It shattered. The color drained from his face, leaving behind a pasty, slack-jawed horror. He looked like a ghost. He spun back to the microphone, sputtering, but no words came out. And then the flashbulb started. A dozen cameras, all at once, capturing his humiliation. The murmur became a roar. His wealthy friends, the politicians, all staring. They weren't looking at a hero anymore. They were looking at a monster. He was ruined. In an instant, publicly, irreversibly. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I just set my tray down, walked out the service door, and breathed in the cool night air for the first time as a free man. The aftermath was everything I'd hoped for. The news stories that followed weren't about the flood. They were about him. He was hit with a dozen lawsuits, including a class action from my neighbors. The state launched an investigation into criminal negligence. His company went bankrupt within 6 months. He lost everything. Not just the money, but the one thing he truly cared about, his reputation. Didn't just lose his empire, became a pariah.